Hey everybody, my name's Jason Wisniewski. Way back in the olden times of 2012, I started a Facebook group called Old Time Music from the Upper Midwest. And since then, I've been meaning to make an explainer of what I meant by old time music from the Upper Midwest. Here we are, hopefully better late than never. But I wanted to talk a bit about that today. A lot of some people know exactly what I mean. Some fellow musicians. Some people think it's old time music that's made in the Upper Midwest, and that's not entirely wrong. But I want to talk about Upper Midwestern old time music as a genre of sorts, which is not something that's really on most Americans' radar. And of course, I'm from the United States. When I say American, I mean in a very short-sighted way. Please bear with me. But for us Americans, United Statesians, when we hear old-time music, the term old-time music, we tend to think about the rural South. We tend to think about fiddles, but also banjos. We tend to think about Scots-Irish folks in the Appalachians, African Americans in the rural South, maybe Cajuns, cowboys in Texas, maybe. And a lot of that has to do with a few things, really. One is that when some of the first academics were going out to see what is America's real music, what's our musical heritage, they tended to gravitate towards the South. Like Charles Seeger or Alan Lomax. Alan Lomax made it up to the Upper Midwest briefly, but never came back, unfortunately. And so in terms of what people were studying and labeling American music, there's definitely a geographical bent. And when I say America's music, that really is kind of the underlying idea of old time. So when people say old time music, what they really mean is old American music. This is what America sounds like in its essence. There's a lot of baggage there, but that's how people have been thinking about it, whether they intend to or not. And to go along with that, some of it was racialized. I mean, of course, a lot of early folk song collecting did focus on African Americans, but amongst Euro Americans, some groups were had people more interested in them than others. I mentioned the Scots-Irish in Appalachia. Well, Scots-Irish doesn't mean Scottish and Irish combined and like big tent thing. The Scots-Irish are a group of lowland Scottish Protestants who, especially in the 17th century, had been given land in what's now Northern Ireland for the most part, that was taken from native Irish Catholics. So there's this whole issue of like ethnicity and religion that made them more palatable ancestors of America's cultural heritage than, say, Germans in their Milwaukee beer gardens. Or Poles, or and any number of groups. Um, so there's a lot that goes into this, but basically, in the idea to establish what America's musical heritage was or is, the Upper Midwest and quite a lot of the rest of the country got sort of skipped over or subsumed under other types of music that were maybe not the most helpful in helping us understand that. So up in the Upper Midwest here, which I'll define as about Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, northern Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, the Dakotas, especially the eastern part. And that's not a hard and fast definition. When you take a marker and try and draw a line geographically around a cultural area, you're never going to not have it be messy. But in that area, we do have some influence from, say, the rural South. Certainly through early country music, and before that, I'm ashamed to say, minstrel shows, where white performers would blacken their faces and entertain other white people by mimicking and making fun of African Americans. It's a pretty dark chapter of our musical history, but goes all the way through, the middle of the 20th century and is really the basis of much of American pop music and popular culture in a way that the more you look into it, the more uncomfortable one becomes. So we did have that, and we also had, farmers from like Kentucky, say, coming to farm up in the Upper Midwest. But another thing, a couple of things that are, if not unique, very characteristic, are one. A lot of the Native American peoples of the Upper Midwest were able to stay. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't that people didn't get kicked out, because they did. Plenty of Native peoples were removed, but there are still lots of strong Native communities, especially across the area south and west of Lake Superior. So there's that influence. We have French Canadians in the UP, and we also had this thing where if you were an immigrant in, say, the 1830s or 40s or 18 anything pretty much, and you came to the East Coast, to say New York or Boston, you've got this very dominant white culture that's already there. It's a very particular kind of white culture. You might say WASPs, or white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Maybe a little bit oversimplistic, but you definitely have that very waspy established culture. And the thing is that when Europeans started coming to the Upper Midwest, that hadn't had a chance to develop here yet. I mean, the WASPs were coming, but so were the Germans, the Finns, the Norwegians, the French, the Finns, all sorts of folks were coming here. And so this area became a haven of multiculturalism, granted largely European multiculturalism, But I remember reading that up until I think the 50s or 60s, there were still places that were doing small town, maybe it was Hustisford, that was doing church services in German, like completely in German. Milwaukee used to have a lot of German newspapers, German theaters. It used to be called Die Deutsche Atem, German Athens, and German language newspapers were all over the place. And of course, the beer gardens. Lots of Norwegians farming out in western Wisconsin and southern Wisconsin. Finns in the Upper Peninsula and northern Minnesota, mining, along with Cornish miners who are also down in southwestern Wisconsin around Mineral Point. And all of these groups coming together at the same time. And so if you're a musician, you're probably living in, whether it's a small town, a farming community, or it's just the winter community at the lumber camp that you're working at. You're in with people from different cultures who have different musical tastes. And so one of the things that you had to learn was, okay, I know the favorite tunes of my group. Let's say I'm Norwegian, and I know my Norwegian standards, and I might live on a road called Norwegian Road. This is a thing that happened. The next road over might be Polish Road, or it might be German Road, and if I'm gonna be a successful musician and play for the community for dances, and dances were huge, especially during the winter. People would take the cook stove out of the farmhouse, open up all the windows, and they'd still be sweating in there because they'd be dancing for hours and hours and hours all night. If I want to entertain for all those people, I got to know some of their favorites too. So you have a lot of back and forth and trading repertoire, sometimes trading musical style, and so you get musicians who are not just able to play the neighbor's music, but enjoy playing it. Remember watching a really great documentary film called Upper Creoles, about Finns in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and the great Finnish multi-instrumentalist Orrin Tikkanen, mentioned how much all the Finnish musicians love this. I think it was, I forget if it was Slovenian or Slovakian tune or Czech. I probably should have looked that up before then, but it's called Oi Mariška Pegla. And so all the Finns are playing this Slavic tune. You got actually one of the things that surprised me one day. I was driving in my car and I was listening to a recording of a Finnish American band from northern Wisconsin, the Oulu Hotshots. If you're from Finland, I know it's pronounced Oulu there, but in Finland or in Wisconsin, we mispronounce it Oulu. So the Oulu Hotshots are playing this tune, and in the track listing it says Hambo, which is a Scandinavian couples dance. And I'm like, what is this tune? I know this. I know this. It takes me a good 3-4 minutes to realize that I know it as this Polish oberek, which is another kind of tune. And it's like, are you kidding me? This Polish oberek that I've played for years, that's being played as a hambo by this Finnish band. And you get all kinds of things like that. And then you get and it's not all just old school stuff, but you got people merging all of that with what's growing into country music. So there's, it's almost like hybridization is such a huge quality of the music up here. And that, I think it's bigger here than it is, I think, a lot of other places where that also happens. People did exchange music for similar reasons elsewhere, but I think we really did a lot of it, and we kept it. Like it became not just, oh, a few people did that and then we moved on. It became kind of a bit of the heart and soul of the Upper Midwest musically. So if we're talking about like Upper Midwestern music, old time music as a style of music, we almost might want to think of it as not just one style of music, but maybe more of a constellation of styles, or a web of styles, where we have a lot of interconnected musical repertoires and styles and instruments that are all borrowing and giving to one another, and trading and making all these beautiful new things together. And that's how I tend to see it. So when I talk about old time music from the Upper Midwest, that's the kind of thing I mean. For me, my personal fiddling repertoire, a lot of Norwegian stuff. So one of the things about this constellation or web or back and forth borrowing is sometimes the predominance of one ethnic group's music can depend on what instrument you're playing. So like if you're playing fiddle in the Upper Midwest, playing old time music on the fiddle, you're probably going to play a lot of Norwegian tunes because the Norwegians were pretty dominant fiddlers. Norwegian and Anglo-American fiddling. But if you play the piano accordion or the Chemnitzer concertina, you're probably playing a lot of like German, Polish, Slovenian tunes. So it's it can be quite varied. But me as a fiddler, I play a lot of Irish tunes. I play Finnish tunes. I got some Native American tunes, some lumberjack tunes. Goodness, all kind of stuff is fair game, and that's one of the things I absolutely love about this area. And to be fair to those of you for whom this is brand new, it was brand new to me. When I first read about it, I was doing my master's thesis on the Irish music scene here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I'd played Irish music for some time, and I was researching the history of Irish music in Wisconsin, and I ran across this book, which I have to plug, Polkabilly by Jim Leary. It's about a band from the Madison area called the Goose Island Ramblers, and I'm reading just like the introduction or the first chapter, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, that explains my entire life. Like that's why I'm eating Cornish pasties and sauerkraut and going to Finnish language summer camp. And I didn't realize until grad school that middle school orchestras in other places didn't have their kids play polka standards. So yeah, it was really a revelation to me, and it led me down this really amazing rabbit hole. And I don't want to go back up. I really enjoy it. I think I'll leave it there. I might make another video about just some tips for would-be Upper Midwestern fiddlers. But I've already talked for 20 minutes, so I'll leave you with that. Thanks for listening. Glad to see you around.